Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Khususan ala sayyidi rusuli wa khatim al-anbiya wa ala alihi al-askiya wa ashabihi al-atqiya amma ba'd. Inshallah, today we are starting from verse number 10 of Surah Al-Muzzammil, Surah 73. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واصبر على ما يقولون واهجرهم هجرا جميلا وذرني والمكذبين أولي النعمة ومهلهم قليلا إن لدينا أنكالا وجحيما وطعاما ذا غصة وعذابا أليما يوم ترجف الأرض والجبال وكانت الجبال كثيبا مهيلا إنا أرسلنا إليكم رسولا شاهدا عليكم كما أرسلنا إلى فرعون رسولا فعصى فرعون الرسول فأخذناه أخذا وبيلا فكيف تتقون إن كفرتم يوما يجعل الولدان شيبا السماء منفطر به كان وعده مفعولا إن هذه تذكرة فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا صدق الله العظيم. So we are studying the verses of Surah Al-Muzzammil, and this is our third class. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in verse number 10, He says, وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَاهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. And be patient over what they say and avoid them with gracious avoidance. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the early days of Islam was abused abundantly by the people of Makkah Mukarramah. And as we had explained in the opening verses of the surah in the first class, that Surah Al-Muzzammil, according to majority of the scholars, was one of the first surahs revealed on the Prophet ﷺ. One of the earliest surahs revealed on the Prophet ﷺ. And if this was from the first surahs revealed on the Prophet ﷺ, there is no doubt, and we can only imagine what kind of difficulty the Prophet ﷺ went through. There's no doubt on the difficulty he went through, because we are aware of the narrations and the life of the Prophet ﷺ in Makkah Mukarramah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that with whatever they say to you, whether it's their lying upon you, whether it's their accusations upon you, whether it's their swearing to you, whatever they say to you, you have to be patient. Because one of the ways that people, they attack the Prophet ﷺ, how they attack the Prophet ﷺ was by framing him and by lying on him. They always tried to frame the Prophet ﷺ by try to make him look like a criminal. Because if a person looks innocent, can you ever, create propaganda about him or create hatred in the hearts of people for him? If he's innocent? Not at all. You have to somehow make him look guilty. But the problem was that there was already a positive association with the Prophet ﷺ. He was already known by society as as-Sadiq and al-Amin. So no matter how guilty they try to make him look, it wouldn't work. Because they already knew he was an innocent person. There was an oxymoron here. You can't be innocent and guilty at the same time. It had to be one of the two. And they had already established that the Prophet ﷺ was an innocent person. For 40 years, he was known in Makkah Mukarramah as as-Sadiq and al-Amin. Had the Prophet ﷺ not been known as as-Sadiq and al-Amin for 40 years, and they tried to frame the Prophet ﷺ, would they have been successful? Very easily. Very easily they would have been successful. But the Prophet ﷺ made it such from the moment, from the beginning of his life, that they could never frame him because he had created such a positive reputation within society. This relates directly to us. Because as long as we live in a society where people are, opposing to Islam, they will always try to frame the Muslim. And the reason why they try to frame the Muslim is so that people show aggression towards the Muslim or towards the particular individual. Now, the only way you can actually ever save yourself from being framed is by first of all establishing good credit within society. So now when something happens from a Muslim, rather than people saying it was the Muslim that did it wrong, people will say, no, it wasn't the Muslim that did it wrong. It was actually the Muslim that did it right, because we see the Muslims contributed so much. And every time we open up the news, we see that people are saying, the Muslims are the ones that did this. The Muslims are the ones that did that bombing. Always, right away, they're pointing at the Muslims. And it's sad because if a Christian or a Jew or an atheist or whatever religion that's being practiced in society, if they were to commit a crime, that crime would never be associated with their religion. Rather, it would be associated with their culture, with them as individuals, maybe the psychopaths. But every single time and a Muslim does anything, immediately it's attached to a Muslim did this. A Muslim did this. What I would like to see, and I don't expect some media or some news station to do this. I don't think anyone from outside the folds of Islam would do this. And if someone did, that would be a very wise thing, and I'd be shocked. But what I would like to see is someone from within, our youth or from our community, to gather together all the things that Muslims have done for the betterment of the American society. I want someone to walk through this nation and write down on paper, this is how many soup kitchens we have that serve the community on a weekly basis. Because I'm sure there are hundreds, yes or no? There are definitely hundreds out there. I want someone to gather together all the PDs that are taking place. The Project Downtown. You guys know what Project Downtown is? It happens across the nation. It actually even happens in Chicago every single Sunday. Everywhere you go, I see it happening. I was in Miami, and there was a young man there. May Allah give him a long life, give barakah in his life. He runs a Project Downtown himself. For those of you who don't know what Project Downtown is, it's where the young men and women from our colleges and university, they prepare food. They go to the inner city, the parts of the city which are kind of underachieved, and they'll distribute food for free. There's one guy that I know in Miami, may Allah give him a long life, he amazes me because he runs the full Project Downtown alone. I spoke to him. He said, Sheikh, I try to raise money within my community. If someone can give money, it costs like $100, $150 to put a meal together. And he goes, if they couldn't give it, alhamdulillah. If they can't, what I end up doing is that I just tell my parents or some people I know to put some money together. I go to Walmart, I buy the pasta myself. Saturday night, I cook the pasta myself. He said, then I take this, I package it up, purchase a whole bunch of chips and drinks and apples because they give a chip, drink, apple, and a plate of food. He said, I then drive it all the way to the inner city, and I set up table myself and I distribute the food myself, and I've been doing this for years now. Young guy. How old is he? Maybe 21 years old, 21 years old. Young guy. He does it single-handed himself. And he said to me, Sheikh, sometimes people in the community aren't even ready to give me $150 just so that I can cover the cost of the food. I'm not even telling them to come out and serve. That's amazing. When I think about that, I think of the Sahaba. I think of, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. I've never seen generosity like that. When I was in Miami, a very unique incident took place with me. It was a very unique incident. And the reason I'm talking about this is because there's so much good our society does and no one talks about it. Everyone's always talking about the bad things. And we don't spend enough time talking about our good things. Every single time in our community we do something good, you know what we should do? Every single time. What we should do is we should report it, make a press release out of it. Every single time we do something, make a press release out of it and send it to all the local newspapers. There was one brother I met, I don't remember which country he was from. I think he was from Barbados, or one of the Caribbean islands. He said to me that in our community, every time we do something good, we immediately make a note of it, write a little article up, we have one person, the brother in the community who does it, and we send it out to all the newspapers. So when we send it to them, we don't expect them to publish it. Sometimes what happens is that when they don't have a story to run, they have to find something to print, because they can't have a gap in their newspaper. What do they turn on to? What do they pull out of the drawer? One of our stories. Because we send them one every single week, hoping they don't publish it. But one day they run out of stories and they have a gap in their paper, they pull one of our stories out and they publish it. And sometimes what happens, he said this to me, he said sometimes what happens in our community is that when we are being attacked by the media or whatever it is, and they have to run a story against us, because they've been reading our positive actions within society for so many years, they feel bad of even running the story. And there were times where people asked them to run a negative story against the Muslims and they refused to run it because of what we were sending them for all these years. Now we have to take that lead. You look at the Jewish community, and this is the truth. They have so many, like houses or segments or smaller departments within society who sit there and you read the newspapers. And if they find anything that happens against, anything that was done against the Jewish lobby or something that was done against their community, some newspaper, some reporter, someone even made like a winked wrong against them, they immediately note that down, they send it one level up, who then send it to the level above, and they have this whole hierarchy, and before you know it, there's active measurements being taken on a national level. Are you guys following what I'm saying? Governments do this. There was one sheikh, I was reading his book yesterday. It's called, in Urdu it's called Sadaya Dil. I think in English it's called The Call from the Heart, or A Call from the Heart. I think that's the name of the book. It's such a beautiful book. Wallahi, it's such a beautiful book. I encourage everyone, Maybe next week, if I remember, I'll bring a copy of it so I can show it to you guys. I encourage everyone to read it. It's actually in English. Such a beautiful book. SubhanAllah, when I read the book, I was in tears through the book. Literally, while I was reading it, I was just crying my way through because I thought it was so real. It was written by one of the senior scholars of our time. His name is Sheikh Abdullah Kapudri. That's a small village in India. Kapudri, something like this it's called. That's his name, Sheikh Abdullah Kapudri. And he's actually from Toronto. Can you believe that? And the most amazing thing is that he was supposed to come to Chicago last year. And I was so excited that he was coming that I actually told my friends that cancel everything for that full week. I'm going to spend every moment of that week with him. He was coming, for those of you who remember, for the Sharia Board girls' graduation. He was an invited guest speaker. His name was on every single flyer that he was going to be the guest speaker. And subhanAllah, it happened to be he couldn't make it. He was going to speak at the IIE graduation and the Sharia Board graduation that same weekend. They invited him, Abdullah Salim and Mufti Al-Rahman, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. It was such a beautiful book, and in there he wrote something. He was talking about how to manage communities. And you know this thing I was talking about, how the Jewish community have this hierarchy? He actually notes this in his book. And another point that he made that's very powerful is that he was saying that he met someone, or he knew someone who had met someone. There was a person, and what this guy used to do his entire life, you know what his job was? He used to work for some Middle Eastern country embassy somewhere in New York, and he used to sit there and read through all the, newspapers. His job was every morning till evening, he would read through all the newspapers and try to find the name of his country in every newspaper. And if he'd find it, he'd highlight it and send it to his superior then. That's all he would do. He would sit there and read all the newspaper and find anything anyone said against his country. And he would highlight it and he would send it one above. And if anything good was done, highlight it and give it to the ambassador. Highlight it, give it to the ambassador. So they had track of what was happening. In our community, we don't have. Are you guys following what I'm saying? We need to create this track. We need people to stand up and say, these are the things that we're doing that are good. But there's so many good things that are being done within our society by our youth, by our young men and women. One sister, she came to me right now, and she was telling me about a project that she was running. It's a very interesting project. You know, it's literally, you know, the state of attorney is investing so much money in de-radicalizing Muslims. There's no need to de-radicalize Muslims. Muslims are already de-radicalized. We're Muslims. You know, we're peaceful. They're peaceful people. Alhamdulillah. And this is the truth. You get some people have some confusion in life. That's confusion that exists within every community. Muslims are good people, alhamdulillah. But we have to establish these things. If we don't establish them, then no one will ever be there to establish them for us. If we can't do it ourselves, no one is going to do that for us. So I was saying in Miami, I met this young man, and you know there are many like him. This is a beautiful story. If this is a story that was given to a newspaper, I'm sure they'd run it. But there's a young man from our community who does this every single week. He's been doing it for years now, and this is what his family does for their greater community. And I was telling you guys about a story what happened when I went to Miami last time. When I got to Miami, I had actually booked a car. My wife and I landed there, and we rented a car to go to Orlando, spend a few days there. When I landed in Fort Lauderdale Airport, which is right next to Miami, for those of you guys who have been there, when I landed at the airport, I went to the car rental place, and when I got to the front desk, they asked for my driver's license, so I gave them my driver's license. And I realized at that point that my driver's license expired in January. So, Abdul knows I'm really loose on these kind of things. I do my paperwork really late. May Allah give me the tawfiq to be more on my game. So my driver's license was expired for 2-3 months. The guy refused to give me a car. I said, you have to give me your car. He said, I can't. I said, I have to go to Orlando. I promised my wife, she's going to get mad. He said, I'm sorry, you have to deal with it. I can't give you the car. So I didn't know what to do. I was really worried. It was 12 o'clock at night. I was hungry. You know, it's a long flight for those of you guys who have been out there, hour ahead. I was hungry, didn't know what to do, really worried, didn't have a car, didn't have a hotel, kind of stranded in the middle of nowhere. So it was the same brother, you know this brother I was talking about who does this work alone? I called him and I said to him, I text messaged him, I said, I'm in a situation right now and I'm a little hungry as well. If you can help me out, I'd appreciate it. You know, wallahi, what happened after that actually had such an impact on me that for the remainder of that trip, I would sometimes just find myself sitting there with tears in my eyes. For the remainder of that trip, for what their family did that night. We were invited over, because it reminded me of the Sahaba, wallahi, it reminded me of the Sahaba, where the mother of the house, she cooked an entire meal for us. We went there was like a full buffet prepared. And we walked in and, you know, she had a whole meal cooked for us. She made her daughter empty out her room so we can sleep inside that room. She said to her, empty your room out. She made her change the bed sheets. The daughter was complaining, right? She made her change the bed sheets. When we walked in the house, I saw her with my eyes. She was polishing the tiles with her feet to make sure the house was presentable when we got there. And after we ate, the next morning when I woke up from my room to pray Fajr Salah, when I got up out of the room, she was standing outside the room with a cup of water in her hand. And I said, Auntie, why are you standing outside with a cup of water in your hand? She said, I thought you might be thirsty when you get out of the room when you wake up in the morning. I don't know her. She doesn't know me. We've never met before in our lives. I've never met this lady. And she's holding a cup of water for me when I stepped down. And I was in tears. I was thinking, subhanAllah, I have never felt this much love from anyone outside my family before. And there was absolutely no reason. She didn't even know. She knew I was a scholar because her son told her, but we had first time we were ever meeting. It's nothing like, and after we had this, we sat down the next morning. She gave me a car. She said, take my car and drive all the way to Orlando. I said, I don't have a license. I can't drive. She said, let your wife drive. And I said, women aren't good drivers. Sorry. I had to say it. I said, I don't trust her driving. She said, well, I want you guys to go. She gave us the car. And like beyond that, she gave us a sun pass. You know, it's like the iPass they have. They have something they call a sun pass. She said, take this and go. And I said, no, keep this. And we went all the way. Throughout the trip, she was calling us, like my mother would call me. She was calling us saying, are you guys okay? Do you guys need anything? I put some water in the back seat for you. I'm thinking, what? I looked in the back seat, there's water there. We get to where we're going. We have the time there when we're coming back, calling us through the entire journey. Are you guys okay? Is there anything you need? And then when we get there, she has her house ready for the night. And there was so much hospitality. This lady, subhanAllah, in her backyard, she was growing mangoes and, I don't know, from what I've heard, Bengali people are good at growing stuff. And she was growing everything back there, coconuts and mangoes and lemons and everything. And she was growing so much stuff back there. And she actually prepared for us overnight, can you believe this? An entire jar. She called it Bengali achar. Like, there must be something special about it. She prepared this whole jar of achar. And she said to us when we were going back to Chicago, you have to take this with you. And I said to her, Auntie, TSA won't let it go through. This is not going through. And she said, well, try. I said, Auntie, I'm going to feel sorry for the guy who smells it. This is not going through. She said, no, you have to try. The next morning when we woke up in the morning, we were going back to the airport. I said to the auntie, I'm going to catch a cab. Don't worry about it. It's early. No. She said, no, my husband and I would like to drive you to the airport so we could spend a few more moments with you. SubhanAllah. I'm amazed at this point. Literally, I'm in tears. I'm thinking, I don't know these people. Why are they showing so much love? We come to the airport. I said, look at it one more time. I said, Auntie, this jar is not making it past that TSA. If they go past that, I'm going to file a complaint against them because this shouldn't go through. It has too much liquid in here. She said, try. And I went through. Obviously, the TSA took it away, right? And after they took it away, I called Auntie. I said to her that, I'm sorry, they took that jar and they threw it away in front of my eyes. She said, no problem. It's okay. I was just trying to do something for you guys, right? So we have people like this in our community. But we should note these things down. We should talk about them. We should talk about the good of our community. Because if we establish a good record within society, if we prove our innocence, no one can ever say we're guilty. But if we never establish our innocence, every single time something happens, someone robs a bank, they're going to say probably it was a Muslim. Do you understand? Someone steps on a beehive, they're going to say it's a Muslim. Because we don't have any good credit within society. You know how when you go to the bank, you have to, in order to get a loan, you have to have good credit, right? If you don't have good credit, you can't make it, yes or no? Trust me, I know all about it now. I didn't believe in that stuff before, but now I realize how important good credit is. Okay? You don't have good credit, no one's going to believe you. You can sit there and say, I'm a good person, I'm a good person, I'm a good person. You can tell the banker that 1,000 times, but if you don't have paper, credit written on the paper, will he ever give you that loan? Yes or no? He'll never give it. We have to put our good things on paper. We should let people know that Muslims are good people. And I really hope maybe someone from this gathering right here may leave and may start working on this project that I suggested. Someone should reach to all the masajid of the country and ask them to list out the things that they do on a weekly or monthly basis for the greater society. And we should boast on those things. We should talk about them. That we do these things for the society too. Right? So that way tomorrow someone can say these are bad people because the proof will add up against them. These are actually good people. How many stories are there? How many stories are there? You guys remember the story of, I think it was in New York, where the guy was robbing the store. He ended up walking out with some money in Shahada. You guys remember that story? Where the guy went to rob the store. You guys remember that story, right? I think it was last year or the year before, where there was a guy, he went inside a store, a convenience store, to rob him. And while he was robbing, in the middle of it, he didn't realize the Muslim guy behind the counter had a rifle. He pulled it up and pointed at his head. This guy got on his knees. He was crying. He said, let me go, let me go. And he said, why did you rob me? He said, I was hungry, that's why. He said, here. He gave some food to him. He goes, eat this. And he said, here's some money. Take this money too. You're going to need it when you go. And the guy said, why are you being so nice to me? He said, we Muslims, we do this all. It's a part of us. We do this. It's a normal thing. So he said, I want to become Muslim. And he had the gun pointed at him. You should see the surveillance. Have you guys seen it? YouTube. You guys have YouTube, right? It's a viral video. He has a gun pointed at that guy. Like, it's on YouTube. You're seeing the CCTV. He has a gun pointed at the guy. And the guy says, Ashhadu an la ilaha. He's reading the Shahada with a gun pointed at his head. I'm thinking, subhanAllah, like, I never thought that could ever happen. These are good things. These are good things, mashallah. And these are things that we should talk about. How many people died in the World Trade Center as Muslims? How many of the firemen, how many of the people, the response team were actually Muslims, and they gave their lives in trying to help the greater society? Here the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَاهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. And be patient over what they say and avoid them with gracious avoidance. Because sometimes people can get a little annoying. Even though you've proven that you're a good person, like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as-Sadiq al-Amin, he's established his good credit in society. Great person. But yet some people, they just can't close their mouth. They just have to keep going and keep going, keep going. I'm sure you guys saw the comments of Alan West. You guys saw those comments that he posted on Facebook this week? After they were saying that they proved that the two people involved in the Boston bombings were Muslims. Alan West, he applied, he's a senator candidate for the state of Illinois. He put a statement up on social media, and it was such a terrible statement. I mean, khair. Saying that organizations like ISNA, ICNA, MPAC, MAS, calling out literally with names that these guys are nothing more than extremists and we shouldn't tolerate them, and they're talking about peace, but they think peace is a one-way street where they think that we have to be peaceful to them, but they're not peaceful to our society. And he's talking about all this in my language. It's all trash. You understand? Some people, even though you put the facts in front of them, they just don't listen. So at times like that, what do? When someone gets annoying, stay quiet. Literally, you just stay quiet. When I read that statement on Facebook, I had actually made an intention to actually reply to that. And I don't reply to people on Facebook usually. It's usually one-way communication for me. I usually don't engage on social media discussions. But I actually thought I was going to do that. I was like, you know what? I'm going to write up a nice long article, and I'm going to refute this, and I'm going to post it up. But then I thought to myself, if I do, I'm not bettering the situation. I'm actually only giving voice to someone who's who's seeking that attention. Are you guys following what I'm saying? We're just giving someone more attention. There's no point doing that. Sometimes all you have to do is وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ. Be patient with what they're saying. وَاهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. And avoid them with beautiful avoidance, with appropriate avoidance. Just be kind, not nice. Avoid them because sometimes some people just have the habit of talking, in our language they say, let the barking dog bark. The dog has a habit of barking, let it bark. Let the barking dog bark because that's what it does. You have to, but you can't start barking with it because then you become a dog as well. If the dog's barking, you can't start barking as well. You just have to close your mouth and move on with it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse number 11, what happens to these people? If you close your mouth and you avoid them, does that mean that's where it ends, where they're winners and you're losers? Is that what happens? Because you close your mouth when they said something bad to you and they were annoying you and you just avoided them, you shut them off, does that mean that you lost and they won? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He explains in verse number 11 by saying, وَذَرْنِي وَالْمُكَذِّبِينَ أُولِي النَّعْمَةِ وَمَهِّلْهُمْ قَلِيلًا. And leave me with the deniers. Leave them with me. Those people that are denying, وَذَرْنِي وَالْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Leave them with me. And what is their adjective that Allah gives? Regarding the deniers, those people who deny, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He describes them with a unique characteristic. Allah says, أُولِي النَّعْمَةِ. What is the word used there? أُولِي النَّعْمَةِ وَذَرْنِي وَالْمُكَذِّبِينَ أُولِي النَّعْمَةِ. أُولِي النَّعْمَةِ, what this means is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أُولِي النَّعْمَةِ means those with blessings. What this means, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to say here is that sometimes we feel inferior to those people because we know they're on the wrong, but we see they have so much of the world. You guys understand that? So wealthy, so rich, nice cars, nice name. They have CNN and they have Fox News and they have BBC and they have so much and we have so little. Al Jazeera is the one thing that everyone's boasting over, and only Allah knows if there's actually Muslims behind that channel or not. Wallahu alam. I'm not even saying anything. It's not a fact, it's just a thought. Okay? Wallahu alam. We don't have, media out there. Okay? And it seems that people have so much. So when you look at them, ulil nama, the people with so much good, you think to yourself, you're inferior and they're superior. When in reality, it's not like that. Because who's inferior and superior, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, because we judge people not off the outer, but rather off taqwa, which is internal matter. It's a spiritual state of the heart that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of. You guys understand that? This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran in another verse, نُمَتِّعُهُمْ قَلِيلًا ثُمَّ نَضْطَرُّهُمْ إِلَىٰ عَذَابٍ غَلِيظٍ. Allah Azza wa Jal says in another verse of the Quran, نُمَتِّعُهُمْ قَلِيلًا, that we give them a little good of the world. نُمَتِّعُهُمْ, we give them good. قَلِيلًا means just a little bit. We're giving them a little good. Because what's going to happen in the hereafter? ثُمَّ نَضْطَرُّهُمْ, because then we're going to force them. نَضْطَرُّهُمْ. إِضْطِرَار means like kind of like to push them, force them. We're going to chain them up and we're going to drag them. And when we're dragging them, where are we going to drag them to? إِلَىٰ عَذَابٍ غَلِيظٍ, towards a filthy and dirty and a painful punishment. That's where they're going to go. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that ignore the people, ignore these rejectors and leave them with me, because they have a lot, don't think they're right, they're actually wrong. Because you have to remember this. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and put this surah into context, the surah was revealed in the early days of Islam. Yes or no? I just established that. It was revealed in the early days of Islam. And in the early days of Islam, what type of people were generally accepting Islam? The poor, yes or no? More or less it was the poor people that were accepting Islam. So now it became, society viewed Islam kind of like a poor people's thing. New little boys club, poor people get together, try to raise their voice, human rights club, that's what they thought of it. But in reality, there's no doubt in the fact that Islam is a human rights club. I mean, from a perspective. But it's not only for poor people, it's not only for rich people, it's for, as the Prophet ﷺ said, I have been sent as a messenger to إِلَى كَافَةَ النَّاسِ, right? To all of the people, everyone's invited. Come on in and join in. And this was actually a sign of the prophets. Every prophet that came, majority of the people around them were actually the poor people. Yes or no? It was the poor people. There are so many examples of this. They told the prophets that move these poor people and we'll come and sit with you. And the Prophet of Allah said, how can I move the people who believe in Allah? How can I move the people who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because what happens with a lot of rich people, the reason why the scholars discuss is why are there more poor people around the messengers as opposed to the rich people, is because rich people usually don't need anything. They feel like they're taken care of. And poor people are always dependent. And when they're dependent, a poor person will search for someone who is independent. Hence, ultimately led to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for a rich person, he feels that he's already independent. And if he feels he's independent, will he ever need to search for another independent being? Usually not. Therefore, you have a caught here. They're caught in a fishnet. They're not going anywhere. And that's why it takes a person a heart to always remember that we always are dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I always give this example. I can tell you guys so many names of so many people that I know that were wealthy one day and became poor the next day. There are so many people like this. When the market went bust and when the big famous scam happened in Chicago, I'm not going to say the name, but you guys are aware of it, where all these Muslims made investments with another Muslim investor and he ran away with people's money. I saw it overnight, I'm telling you, and you guys who are from Chicago, you saw it. There were people who invested $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, and overnight they were broke. There was one case in Chicago from our local Northside Chicago area, where I remember one brother, he came and told me, his son is disabled or his daughter, one of his children are disabled. He himself is disabled. He finally he worked all of his entire life. He paid off his house. This man came to him and said to him, Muslim man, subhanAllah, he came and said to him, invest with me, halal investment. I don't know what that means, but it's a halal investment. So invest your money. So this guy said, I took my house out on mortgage again. It was paid, and what did he do? What did he do, guys? He took it on a mortgage again, subhanAllah, right? And he invested all that money. When the guy left him, the problem with him was that other people, they started working again. A lot of the other people that were ripped off, they started working again. This guy was disabled. His kids were disabled. He was stuck. And he was crying. I remember I had lunch with him, I think. I had lunch with him. And he was crying. He said, Sheikh, what do I do now? I said, bro, if I had money, I would give it to you, but I don't have any money. I think there's nothing I can do right now. You have to do sabr. And ultimately, he lost his house. He lost his house, went into public housing, and, more or less the family is disabled, physically disabled people, and that's where they are. Some people are rich one day and the other day they're poor, right? It's just in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no such thing as smart investing. Yes, smart investing is a good thing. But ultimately, every investment, whose hands is it in? Allah's hands. You can do all the smart investing you want to and do everything by the book and by the principles in investing and knowing how much to invest in a particular project and blah, blah, blah and all that. You can look at everything. But if Allah wants to flop, it'll go. This is just the nature of life. So never have too much reliance on your money. remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the truly independent one. And no matter how much security you feel with your job, with your business, with who you are, with your career, with your education, we're never secure until we walk into Jannah. We're never secure. There is no security. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, you guys have heard of his story. He was passing away and he was kind of zoning in and out. He was passing away. And while he was talking, while he was in this phase of sakarat and ghamarat, in the final moments of his life, his student said to him, read the shahada, read the shahada. And he said, la. What does that mean? No. And they said, la ilaha illallah. He said, la, la, la. What does that mean? No, no, no. And then he passed out. And they were like, what? Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, the man who was considered as a shaheed by, because he gave his life for that famous historical incident. I'm not going to talk about it, but anyway. And he was a scholar of hadith. One of the 4 madhabs of fiqh are attributed to him, the Hanbali school of thought, which is followed by more or less the entire Saudi Arabia and many other parts of the country, of the world. And the scholar is passing away, and they're telling him to re-say, la ilaha illallah, and what is he saying? La. He's saying, no, no, no. And he just passed out, and everyone was like, what just happened? So Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, he kind of gains his consciousness again, and he was kind of back in. He fell unconscious, he was back conscious again. So one of his students said to him, Sheikh, we told you to read the Shahada, you said no. What was that all about? He said, you guys heard me say no? They said, yeah. He said, well, I want you to know I wasn't saying no to your Shahada, I was actually saying no to Shaitan. Shaitan was standing next to him and he was saying, Ahmad bin Hanbal has slipped away from my hands, he's secure now. And he said, not yet. La, I'm not secure yet. I'm not secure yet. I'm not. He said, I said no to him because Shaitan was saying, you're safe from me. And he said, I'm not safe from you yet. I only know if I'm safe when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy with me and He gives my book of deeds in my right hand. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is a good servant of mine. That's the day I'll know that I'm safe. But until then, that's why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said this in a very beautiful way. Very beautiful, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said in a very beautiful way, he said, no person can enter into Jannah without the mercy of Allah. And they said, O Messenger of Allah, how about you? And what did he say? Even not me. Even I can't go to Jannah without the mercy of Allah. I need Allah's mercy, only Allah's mercy. That's when you know you're secure. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we went on that discussion just to, put some reality to this. So we always remember that we are dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are all dependent on Allah. Remember that. Pray to Allah and be as a slave in front of Allah. In verse number 11, Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَذَرْنِي وَالْمُكَذِّبِينَ أُولِي النَّعْمَةِ وَمَهِّلْهُمْ قَلِيلًا. And leave the deniers with me and those of ease in life, and allow them respite a little. Give them a little respite, because ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show who is the powerful. إِنَّ لَدَيْنَا أَنْكَالًا وَجَحِيمًا. Who is the powerful? What is Allah's power? What will their punishment be? Now these verses of Surah Al-Muzzammil come. These are the verses of ghadab. What are these? The verses of ghadab. Ghadab means Allah's anger. Allah's punishment is mentioned in these verses now. From here, more or less till the end of the class, we'll read through the verses, and they're quite self-explanatory. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, إِنَّ لَدَيْنَا أَنْكَالًا وَجَحِيمًا. Indeed, with us, for them, are shackles and burning fire. It's not just burning fire. What is it? Shackles. I mean, the hands will be tied. Their feet will be tied. They'll be in shackles like slaves are. Not slaves, like, what do you call this? Criminals are. وَطَعَامًا ذَا غُصَّةٍ وَعَذَابًا أَلِيمًا. And food that chokes. ذَا غُصَّةٍ. ذَا غُصَّةٍ means that which it chokes a person. The scholars, they say they will eat it, and when they eat it, it won't go down, neither will it come out again. When a person chokes on food, for those of you guys who have ever choked on a piece of meat or something, it doesn't go down, right? So what's your only hope now? It comes out. Because if it doesn't come out, what's going to happen? You're going to die, right? Either it goes down, either it comes out. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, "Tha ghussa," which means that it's not going to go down, neither will it come back out. But there's a problem. What's the problem? You can't die here. You're not going to die. That's a part of the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect. The hadith mentions that people will be burning in the fire of hell and the punishment for many, many years. And they will request Allah. They will say, "Oh Allah, give us something to eat or drink." And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them ta'amul athim. What does the Quran call it? Ta'amul athim. A painful, a sinful, a food that will be very painful. كَالْمُهْلِ يَغْلِي فِي الْبُطُونِ. And what will happen is that they will eat it, and it'll be a fruit that will have spikes on it. and the angels will open the mouth up and stuff it inside, and as it's going down, it'll rip everything from within. Spikes will rip everything. And when it goes in the stomach, كَغَلْيِ الْحَمِيمِ, it'll boil in the stomach like water boils in the kettle, right? And then when they will eat that, they will say, well, Allah, give us something to drink. And when they drink it, right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they will drink blood and pus, the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this food as وَطَعَامًا ذَا غُصَّةٍ, and food that chokes, وَعَذَابًا أَلِيمًا, and a painful punishment. يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الْأَرْضُ وَالْجِبَالُ وَكَانَتِ الْجِبَالُ كَثِيبًا مَهِيلًا. On the day the earth and mountains will convulse, and at the zalzul, the scholars say they will convulse, meaning that they will shake, like an earthquake. They will shake vigorously. They will just be running, and then they will come out of the ground. And as they come out, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, right, وَكَانَتِ الْجِبَالُ كَثِيبًا مَهِيلًا, and the mountains will become like a heap of sand pouring down. They will become like sand, right? They will become like sand pouring down. These powerful mountains that we look at, Mount Everest, and all these other mountains of the world we look at, they're so great. But even these mountains will just be pouring down like sand. They will move from their place when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders. إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ رَسُولًا, indeed we sent to you a messenger. شَاهِدًا عَلَيْكُمْ, as a witness upon you. كَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَىٰ فِرْعَوْنَ رَسُولًا, just as we sent Pharaoh a messenger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we sent a prophet to you, and that prophet will testify for you or against you on the Day of Judgment. It will be your prophet who will testify for you or against you. That's why as Muslims, a key component to our faith is Muhammadur Rasulullah. Our iman doesn't end at La ilaha illallah. It has an extension on towards Muhammadur Rasulullah, because Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was a messenger in this world, and he will be a witness in front of Allah on the Day of Judgment. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes him a witness for us. Ameen. And not a witness against us. The very famous incident, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was one day sitting, and he called Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, who was a companion. He said to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, read some Quran for me. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said, O Messenger of Allah, how can I read the Quran to you when the Quran was revealed to you? If Jibreel reads the Quran to you, how can I read it to you? The angels are reading it to you. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, I would like to hear the Quran from someone from my ummah. One of my students. You know how the teacher gets happy when he hears his students read? One thing is other people read, one thing is his student reads. He said, why don't you, my teachers used to get happy when, may Allah give him a long life, Sheikh Bilal. He used to get happy when I would give a lecture. He would say that the reason why I get happy is because I'm the one who taught him how to give a lecture. So when he gives a lecture, I like it. When the student does something, you feel even better because you realize that's my student. When the child does something, the father feels happy knowing that that's my son there. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ says, Abdullah, read. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said, I was nervous. I lowered my head and I started reading from which surah? Anyone know? Surah Nisa. Which surah? Surah Nisa. Which surah is in the Quran? Anyone know? Not the three. The fourth surah. Very good. Surah Fatiha, Surah Baqarah, Surah Al Imran, and then Surah Nisa. He says, I started reading and I was just looking down. You know how kids get a little nervous when their teachers are sitting in front of them. The worst person to lead Taraweeh with behind you, if you're leading Taraweeh, the worst person to have behind you is your teacher. Because if you're leading Taraweeh and Qari al-Manan standing behind you, he won't be able to read. I'm telling you right now, because your teacher's behind you, you're going to be very nervous. It's going to be very hard for you. If your teacher's behind you, it's very hard. So here, he said, I was reading Quran and I was reading it to my teacher, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, finally, at some point, I took some courage and I looked up. And when I looked up, he said, I saw the face of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and his entire beard was soaked in tears. He was crying so much. And he said, I read one ayah, and after I read the ayah, he cried so much that the Prophet ﷺ then said to me, Abdullah, stop now, stop. And what was the ayah that he read that made the Prophet ﷺ cry so much that after which the Prophet said, stop reading? The ayah was, فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا مِنْ كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ بِشَهِيدٍ وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. How will that day be when Allah will bring from every nation a witness? Meaning every nation will have a prophet who will witness for them or against them. You guys understand? وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. And we will bring you as a witness above everyone. And some scholars say even a witness above the other prophets. And the Prophet started crying, thinking, what a rank, what a day will that be? That everyone's going to give witness against their nations or for their nations, and Allah will bring me as a witness above Everybody. وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَىٰ هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. But for everyone, you will be the witness. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here says that إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ رَسُولًا. Indeed, we have sent to you a messenger, شَاهِدًا عَلَيْكُمْ, a witness upon you. كَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَىٰ فِرْعَوْنَ رَسُولًا. As we had sent to Pharaoh a messenger. Which messenger was sent to Fir'aun alayhi salam? Musa alayhi salam was a messenger. And with him he had a prophet whose name was? Harun. Very good. Who was his? Older brother. فَعَصَى فِرْعَوْنُ الرَّسُولَ. But Pharaoh disobeyed the messenger. فَأَخَذْنَاهُ أَخْذًا وَبِيلًا. And we seized him with a ruinous seizure. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says we seized him with destruction. How did Allah seize him with destruction? What kind of destruction happened when Allah got him? The water closed in on him and he drowned. That was a destruction. You guys understand? Allah didn't only just seize him, but there was a ruin in that seizure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caught him properly, and it was a wabila, destruction. فَكَيْفَ تَتَّقُونَ إِن كَفَرْتُمْ يَوْمًا يَجْعَلُ الْوِلْدَانَ شِيبًا. Then how can you fear Allah if you disbelieve a day that will make children white-haired? Children white-haired. Why will children be white-haired? Because of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, even a mother who was pregnant, what will happen to her child? She will drop the child. Yes? That's what Allah says. يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ اتَّقُوا رَبَّكُمْ إِنَّ زَلْزَلَةَ السَّاعَةِ شَيْءٌ عَظِيمٌ يَوْمَ تَرَوْنَهَا تَذْهَلُ كُلُّ مُرْضِعَةٍ أَمَّا أَرْضَعَتْ وَتَضَعُ كُلُّ ذَاتِ حَمْلٍ حَمْلَهَا. That day, every mother that is pregnant, she will drop her pregnancy. She'll drop her pregnancy right there. Miscarriage on the spot. Because of her fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People usually, their hair turns white because of worries, because of ghumum and fikr and worries, right? And even a young baby who has a long way for him to lose his hair, even that's going to happen. Today, an interesting incident took place. I don't know how I made it to Tafseer today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in the time. I was in the ER maybe just a few hours ago. Maybe 3 hours ago, I was in the ER. My son, he hit his head really hard at home. And it was a very bad injury. So we had, we had to rush him to the ER. It was bleeding very profusely. It was really bad. So khair, anyway, when we took him there, they had to close it in because the wound was very wide, so they had to close it up. So in order to close it up, the doctor said, should I staple it or should I put stitches? So staple is like a lazy way of closing it. It leaves a lot of marks behind. So I said to the lady that, you should, I think you should stitch it. So she said, well, it's on the hair. No one's going to see that there. I said, one day he's going to get old, right? One day he's going to get old. And the doctor was funny because he was bald-headed. I said, one day he's going to get old. I pointed at him. I said, one day he's going to get old, right? And then everyone's going to see the scar. So let's make sure it's not too big of a scar. Make it a small one. And then they put some stitches in his head, subhanAllah. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here, that on that day, even the hair will turn white. يَوْمًا يَجْعَلُ الْوِلْدَانَ شِيبًا السَّمَاءُ مُنْفَطِرٌ بِهِ كَانَ وَعْدُهُ مَفْعُولًا. The heaven will break apart therefrom. The sky will rip. Can you imagine that? The sky is going to rip up. السَّمَاءُ مُنْفَطِرٌ. Munfatir in Urdu, rip isn't a good translation. In Urdu we say, asman us din patawa hoga. Patawa means like, I know it's ripped, but it's in the word patawa, if you translate that into English, it's kind of like an explosion involved in it, like a burst, as opposed to only a rip. You guys understand? It's not only the sky will just rip open. You would think you could rip this. It's not like that, but it's like a burst. It's like an explosion. What was that? Like a torn. Yeah, you can use that as well. But it's kind of like more devastating. That's what I'm trying to say. That the word of munfatir infitar has a greater devastation inside it. Kana wa'duhu maf'ula. Ever his promise is fulfilled. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise. Once He makes a promise, it's going to happen. You and I make promises. We do them. We don't do them. If Allah says something's going to happen, what does that mean? That's going to happen. The world can turn upside down. It's going to happen because Allah said it's going to happen. And in the final ayah of today's class, verse number 19, Allah Azza wa Jal says, Inna hadihi tadhkira. Indeed, this is a reminder. We're not scaring you. We're not trying to threaten you. This is only it's just a reminder for you. Inna hadihi tadhkira. فَمَنْ شَاءَ اتَّخَذَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ سَبِيلًا. Whoever wills, he may make a way towards Lord. If you want to, start making a way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna hadihi tadhkira. This is just a simple reminder. فَمَنْ شَاءَ اتَّخَذَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ سَبِيلًا. Whoever wishes, he can start making his way towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Build your connection with Allah now. Today you have the opportunity. Today there's a reminder. Tomorrow there won't be a reminder. Tomorrow you won't have that chance. And these are the verses of Surah Al-Muzzammil. Surah Al-Muzzammil is a very powerful verse. It's a very powerful surah. When you look at the verses of Surah Al-Muzzammil, there's so much to talk about inside them. Honestly, I feel like a lot of times I'm rushing myself through Surah Al-Muzzammil because I feel like it relates to us so much with what's happening in our day right now. What we're facing in life, these ayahs of the Quran are timeless because Allah's speech is timeless. It helps people at every step in their life. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us all the tawfiq and ability to act upon what has been said, and that Allah azza wa jalla makes us from those who not only read these words but understand them and implement them into our lives. Subhanallah bihamdihi. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Akhiru da'wana. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.